Before we dive into today's story, if this is your first time watching one of our videos, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Stick with us till the very end. And if this story moves you, share your thoughts in the comments and send it to a friend who needs to hear it. Now, let's begin. The Brightwater Bay Country Club shimmered under the golden afternoon sun, its long green lawn sloping gently toward the sparkling water where white sailboats drifted lazily across the horizon. Inside the massive glass-walled ballroom, the Caldwell family reunion was already in full swing. 72 relatives filled the room, laughing loudly, clinking glasses, and standing proudly beside long display tables covered in framed photos that showed decades of achievements. There were photos of promotions, weddings, grand homes, ribbon-cutting ceremonies, and magazine covers. This reunion had been a Caldwell tradition for over 40 years, started by the late matriarch, Eleanor Caldwell, who believed family success should be celebrated loudly and publicly. Large, cream-colored tablecloths stretched across the room, holding catered food and towering flower arrangements, while a banner near the entrance read, "The Caldwell Legacy, Excellence Through Generations." Standing quietly near the refreshment table was Serena Caldwell, dressed in simple blue jeans, a plain white blouse, and flat shoes. Her dark hair was pulled into a low ponytail, her face bare of makeup, and the only jewelry she wore was a modest silver watch her grandmother Eleanor had given her years ago. She had arrived exactly at 2 p.m. in her 2015 Toyota Corolla, parked neatly between luxury SUVs and imported sedans. As Serena watched her relatives laugh and boast, she felt the familiar weight of being different in a family that measured worth by what could be seen, worn, and displayed. Before Serena could even take a sip of her drink, her Aunt Lorraine swept toward her, heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Lorraine always carried herself like she was entering a boardroom, not a family gathering, her posture stiff and her smile carefully practiced. "Serena, you actually came," Lorraine said, her eyes scanning Serena from head to toe. "We honestly weren't sure you would." Serena smiled politely. "It's the family reunion. Of course I came." Lorraine tilted her head slightly. "You look comfortable," she said, her tone heavy with judgment. "Is that what you're wearing for the photos later?" Serena shrugged. "Yes, I'm fine like this." Lorraine let out a small sigh. "Well, I suppose not everyone plans for multiple outfits. These things can get expensive." Then she leaned closer, lowering her voice. "So tell me, sweetheart, how are things going for you financially? Your uncle and I were just talking, and we haven't heard much about your work in a while." Serena kept her tone calm. "I'm doing well, still working in pharmaceutical research." Lorraine nodded slowly. "That must be tough, competitive, unstable, especially at your age. You know, my friend's company is hiring for office support. It's not glamorous, but it's steady. I could recommend you." Serena forced a small smile. "That's kind of you, but I'm happy where I am." Just then, Serena's Uncle Gerald joined them, holding a glass of whiskey and wearing his usual loud grin. "Well, look who's still flying solo," he said. "No husband today, Serena?" Lorraine shot him a warning look, but he ignored it. "What?" "I'm just asking." He took a slow sip. 36 years old, still single. "Must be hard watching all your cousins build families while you come alone." Serena answered evenly, "I'm doing just fine, Uncle Gerald." He chuckled. "Are you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you stalled. You were the genius, remember? Full scholarship, top of your class. We all thought you'd be running some massive company by now. Instead, you're in a lab somewhere, living in a small apartment, driving an old car." Serena's cousin Mark and his wife Vanessa stepped closer, clearly listening. "We're not judging," Mark said quickly. "We're just worried. If you need help, we're family. You can ask." Vanessa looked at Serena's jeans and frowned gently. "Those look like bargain clothes." There's no shame in struggling. Serena's voice stayed calm. I'm not struggling. Gerald shook his head. Then why live like you are? Why not show some success? You're too smart for this life, Serena. Serena glanced at her watch. 2:24 p.m. She excused herself and stepped onto the terrace, letting the warm breeze cool her face. Her phone buzzed with a message from her husband, running a few minutes late. The boys insisted on picking flowers for you. Serena smiled and typed back, perfect. See you soon. Another message popped up, this one from her executive assistant, Thomas. Board approved the Helix Core acquisition. Contracts are finalized. Should I bring them to the club or wait until Monday? Serena stared at the message for a moment, then replied, bring them now. A few seconds later, Thomas responded, are you sure? It could cause a scene. Serena typed, yes. It's time. She slipped her phone back into her bag and returned inside, where the judgmental glances continued. Her great-aunt Vivian waved her over. Serena, come sit with me, she called. Serena sat beside her, and Vivian studied her closely. Still in research, I hear. Does that pay enough to survive these days? Serena nodded. More than enough, Aunt Vivian. The older woman frowned slightly. You don't look like it. Success should show, dear. Otherwise, people assume you failed. Uncle Gerald had gathered a small group nearby, speaking loudly on purpose. Serena peaked too early, he said. All that brain power, and she never turned it into real-world success. It's sad, really. Someone murmured, maybe she's happy. Gerald scoffed. Happy and broke is still broke. Serena listened without reacting, glancing at her watch again. 2:46 p.m., 13 minutes. Then the ballroom doors opened. The room slowly went quiet as a tall man in medical scrubs stepped inside, his dark hair neatly styled, his hospital ID clipped to his belt. Behind him ran two 8-year-old boys, both carrying small bouquets of flowers and smiling wide. Mom, they shouted together. Serena stood, her face lighting up as she caught them in a hug. Hi, my loves, she said, laughing. The man kissed her cheek. Sorry we're late. Emergency surgery ran long. Serena smiled warmly. It's okay, Daniel. She turned to the stunned room. Everyone, this is my husband, Dr. Daniel Reyes. And these are our sons, Leo and Noah. The silence was thick. Aunt Lorraine's mouth fell open. Your husband? Gerald whispered. Daniel smiled politely. Chief of Neurosurgery at Harborview Medical Center, he said. Phones came out. Names were searched. Whispers spread. Serena simply stood there, holding her sons, calm and steady, as the story everyone thought they knew began to unravel. The shock in the ballroom did not fade quickly. In fact, it seemed to grow heavier with every second that passed. Aunt Lorraine clutched the back of a chair as if she needed support to stay standing. You're married, she repeated weakly. For how long? Daniel answered before Serena could. 9 years, he said calmly. We met when Serena was consulting on a clinical trial at my hospital. I asked her out for coffee, and I've been trying to keep up with her brilliance ever since. Cousin Mark looked between them in disbelief. You never mentioned a husband. Or children. Serena replied gently, you never asked. You saw me come alone and assumed I was alone in life. Uncle Gerald rubbed his face. Daniel Reyes, wait. Dr. Daniel Reyes? The surgeon who developed that new spinal microsurgery method. Daniel nodded modestly. Yes, but it was a team effort. Vanessa's phone slipped from her hand. You're that Dr. Reyes? You're on medical journals. You're on TV. The boys tugged on Serena's arms. Mom, are these the people you said judge your genes? Leo whispered loudly. Serena winced but smiled. Yes, sweetheart, these are them. Laughter rippled nervously through the room, but the tension remained thick, like a storm waiting to break. Before anyone could fully recover, the ballroom doors opened again. This time, Thomas entered wearing a sharp suit and carrying a thick leather folder. He looked slightly uncomfortable as he approached Serena. "Mrs. Reyes," he said formally, his voice echoing in the quiet room. "I apologize for interrupting your family event, but the Helix Core acquisition contracts arrived. They need your signature today to finalize the deal." The room froze. "Acquisition?" Great Aunt Vivian whispered. Thomas opened the folder, just enough for the bold letters to be seen. Aurelius Biotech acquires Helix Core Pharmaceuticals. $2.3 billion. He continued, unaware of the shockwaves. "As CEO of Aurelius Biotech, you'll be officially closing the deal today. This acquisition will make Aurelius one of the top 3 biotech research firms in North America." Uncle Gerald sank into a chair. "CEO," he croaked. Thomas added calmly, "Mrs. Reyes founded Aurelius 12 years ago while completing her doctorate in molecular biology. The company is currently valued at approximately $7.9 billion. Mrs. Reyes holds a majority stake." A chair scraped loudly. Someone gasped. Aunt Lorraine swayed and had to be helped into a seat. Serena took the folder, flipping through with ease, signing each page without hesitation. "Did the board approve the expanded pediatric research funding?" she asked. "Unanimously," Thomas replied. "They're very excited about the rare disease pipeline." Serena nodded. "Good. That's the most important part." The room erupted into confused whispers and stunned stares. Cousin Mark looked sick. "Serena, you're a billionaire?" Serena shrugged lightly. "On paper, yes." Vanessa whispered. "All this time we thought you were barely getting by." Uncle Gerald stared at the floor. "I called you broke. I called you wasted potential." Serena's voice stayed steady. "You judged based on my clothes, my car, my silence. I never lied. I just didn't advertise." Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. "She cares more about her scientists than her wardrobe," he said. The boys nodded seriously. "Mom says money is boring," Noah said. "Curing sick kids is cool," Leo added. That broke something in the room. Great Aunt Vivian slowly stood. "Child," she said, her voice shaking, "you built an empire in silence while we measured success with handbags and houses." Tears rolled down Aunt Lorraine's face. "We treated you like a failure," she sobbed. "We pitied you." Serena met her eyes. "I didn't need pity. I needed curiosity. I needed family who wanted to know who I really was, not what I looked like." The room was silent. No one argued. Uncle Gerald walked over slowly, his shoulders heavy. "I was cruel," he said quietly. "I reduced you to appearances. I was wrong. Completely wrong." Serena softened. "You weren't trying to be cruel. You just measured success the only way you knew how. But impact doesn't always look impressive from the outside." Great Aunt Vivian wiped her eyes. "Your grandmother would be so proud. She always said you were different, that you would change things." Serena swallowed hard. "She knew," she whispered. Daniel glanced at his watch. "We should head out soon. The boys have practice and I have evening rounds." Cousin Mark rushed forward. "Wait, please. Can we start over? Can we actually get to know you? The real you?" Serena looked around at the humbled faces. "Yes," she said softly, "but no more assumptions. Ask. Listen. Care." Heads nodded quickly. Promises were made. Apologies flowed. For the first time in years, Serena felt seen. As Serena, Daniel, and the boys walked toward the exit, the family stood in silence, watching the woman they had underestimated for nearly a decade. Not the billionaire, not the CEO, not the surgeon's wife, but Serena, the quiet, focused woman who had chosen purpose over performance, impact over image, and humility over display. In the parking lot, Daniel unlocked their sensible SUV, and the boys climbed in, chattering about ice cream and practice. "Do you think they really understand now?" Leo asked. Serena buckled her seatbelt and smiled softly. "Maybe not completely," she said. But today they learned that success isn't always loud. Sometimes it wears jeans. Sometimes it drives an old car. Sometimes it sits quietly while the world underestimates it. Daniel squeezed her hand. They finally saw you. Serena looked back at the grand country club, the glitter, the polished image, and the shallow measures of worth she had endured for years. They did, she said, and that's enough. The car pulled away, leaving behind a family forever changed, and a woman who had proven, without trying to prove anything at all, that the quietest person in the room can be the one changing the world. The following morning, Serena woke to the soft buzz of her phone lighting up her bedside table. At first, she ignored it, thinking it was another news alert or business update. But when the buzzing continued, she reached for it and saw message after message from family members. Cousin Mark had sent a long apology, admitting he had always measured success by money and status, and that he now realized Serena had built something far more meaningful. Aunt Lorraine sent a voice note through tears, saying she could not sleep because she kept replaying every cruel comment she had ever made. Even Uncle Gerald sent a short message that simply read, "I was wrong. Completely. I hope someday you can forgive me." Serena sat on the edge of the bed, reading them slowly. Daniel woke and leaned against the headboard. "Looks like they're finally thinking," he said gently. Serena nodded. "They are. But change takes time. Apologies are easy. Understanding is harder." The boys ran in a few minutes later, excited about breakfast and school, grounding her back in normal life. Serena smiled, reminding herself that no matter how big the family drama became, her real life was here, in small moments, in quiet mornings, in the work that waited for her at Aurelius. Later that week, Serena agreed to let a few family members visit Aurelius Biotech. Aunt Lorraine, Cousin Mark, and Great-Aunt Vivian walked through the massive research facility, their eyes wide as they watched scientists in lab coats, technicians monitoring data, and teams discussing complex charts and trial results. "All of this," Lorraine whispered, "came from you?" Serena shook her head slightly. "From a vision, from a team. I just helped build the structure." Mark watched a group of researchers analyzing samples. "These people, they're changing lives." Serena nodded. "That's why I built Aurelius. Not to be rich. To make treatments for people big companies ignore." Great-Aunt Vivian held Serena's hand tightly. "We thought success meant houses and titles," she said. "You showed us it means impact." For the first time, Serena saw real respect in their eyes. Not envy, not shock, but understanding. It felt different, better. One evening, after a long day at the lab, Serena sat with Daniel on their couch, the boys asleep upstairs. "Do you regret not telling them sooner?" Daniel asked quietly. Serena thought for a long moment. "Sometimes," she admitted, "it would have saved me years of judgment and pain. But I also learned something about myself. I learned I don't need validation. I learned who I am without titles, without applause. I learned that my work speaks, even when I stay silent." Daniel smiled. "That's why you're different. That's why you built something real." Serena leaned her head on his shoulder. "I didn't want my family to love me because I was successful. I wanted them to love me because I was me. Now maybe they can." Daniel kissed her forehead. "They finally have the chance." At the next family gathering, the atmosphere felt completely different. There were no comments about clothes, no questions about money. Instead, there were real conversations. "Tell me about your new trial," Cousin Mark asked genuinely. "How does it help children?" Aunt Lorraine asked Serena to explain how drug development worked. For the first time, Serena felt like she wasn't being inspected, she was being listened to. Even Uncle Gerald sat quietly, nodding as Serena explained her mission. "I never knew," he said softly. "I never bothered to learn." Serena smiled gently. "You're learning now. That's what matters." The family still had flaws. They always would. But now, curiosity had replaced judgment. Respect had replaced pity. Serena realized that sometimes transformation didn't come from anger or revenge. It came from truth. Years later, when people spoke about Serena Reyes, they spoke about the breakthroughs her company had achieved, the children whose lives had been saved, and the diseases that had finally found real treatments. But within her family, she became something more than a success story. She became a lesson, a reminder that the woman in simple clothes could be carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders, that the quietest person in the room might be doing the most important work. Serena never changed her jeans. She never upgraded her car just to impress. She never chased attention, because she didn't need to. Her life was full, with purpose, with love, with impact. And in the end, that was her greatest victory. Not that her family finally saw her wealth, but that they finally saw her. Months passed, and the shift within the Caldwell family became more visible. Group chats that once focused on vacations, shopping, and social status slowly turned into real conversations. Family members began asking Serena about her research, not out of shock anymore, but out of genuine interest. Aunt Lorraine would text late at night, asking thoughtful questions about drug trials and patient care. Cousin Mark sent articles about medical breakthroughs, asking Serena's opinion. Even Uncle Gerald, once so loud and dismissive, became quieter, more reflective. One afternoon, he called Serena directly. "I've been thinking," he admitted. "I spent my whole life trying to look successful. Big house, nice car. But I never once asked myself if what I was doing actually mattered." Serena listened without interrupting. "It's never too late to ask that question," she said gently. "Success can still be redefined." That conversation marked a turning point. Serena realized her impact wasn't only in medicine anymore. It was also quietly reshaping how her family understood worth. At Aurelius Biotech, Serena's work reached new heights. A breakthrough treatment for a rare childhood disorder moved into final approval stages, and the results were nothing short of extraordinary. Parents sent letters. Some wrote in shaky handwriting, thanking her for giving their children a future they were told would never exist. Serena kept those letters in a simple folder in her office, not to show investors, not to post online, but to remind herself why she started. One evening, Daniel found her reading one of them with tears in her eyes. "Hard day?" he asked softly. Serena shook her head. "Good day," she said. "The kind that reminds me why all the sacrifice is worth it." Daniel smiled. "Your family sees the business now. But this is the real story." Serena nodded. "This is the part that never fits in a headline." The boys grew older, proud of their mother in a quiet, natural way. At school, when classmates bragged about fancy things, Leo once said simply, "My mom makes medicine that helps sick kids." Noah added, "She wears jeans, but she's kind of a hero." When Serena heard that, she laughed and cried at the same time. One night at dinner, Leo asked, "Mom, why didn't you tell everyone how big your company was?" Serena thought carefully before answering. "Because I wanted people to know me before they knew my success," she said. "I wanted to make sure love wasn't based on money." Noah nodded seriously. "That makes sense. I want people to like me even if I'm not rich." Serena reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "That's the most important lesson you can learn." At the next reunion, Serena arrived the same way she always had. Same simple clothes, same modest car, same quiet confidence. But this time, she was greeted with warmth instead of judgment. "Serena," voices called, not with pity, not with surprise, but with respect. Family members introduced her proudly, not as a billionaire, but as the one who runs the company that saves lives. Great Aunt Vivian, now older and more fragile, pulled Serena close. "You changed more than medicine," she whispered. "You changed us." Serena held her tightly. "I didn't mean to," she said. "I just lived my life honestly." Vivian smiled. "Sometimes that's enough to change everything." In the end, Serena never became the kind of success story her family once expected. She didn't fit into their old mold of flashy wealth and visible status. She became something far more powerful, a quiet force. A woman who proved that true success does not need to be announced, displayed, or proven. It simply exists in the lives you touch, the problems you solve, and the people you love. Serena Reyes remained exactly who she had always been. A scientist, a mother, a wife, a builder of things that mattered. The world saw her as a billionaire CEO. Her family now saw her as their greatest example. And Serena herself? She saw something even simpler. A life well lived, a purpose fulfilled, and a truth finally understood, that the woman in jeans had always been extraordinary, even when no one bothered to notice. Like and subscribe to my channel for more contents like this, and let us know where you are watching from under the comment section.